Thank you so much for having us, Mr. President.
Great to have you here.
You're announcing an initiative aimed to attack the lack of competition in industries that directly impact consumers, and you're starting out with the cable industry. What changes can consumers and companies expect to occur in the coming months as a result of this initiative?
Well, actually, the executive order applies to all agencies, and the basic notion is this: competition is good for consumers, and ultimately it's good for business. That's the way the free market works. The more competition we have, the more products, services, innovation takes place. And the sort of the cable or satellite box is just one example of an area where, because it's been tied to the provider and you rent it, and consumers spend billions of dollars on this every single year, there hasn't been much innovation. And so the FCC is looking independently of anything we do here at the White House at whether it makes sense to open that up to competition. You'll recall, or you won't because you're too young, but prior to 1982, phones worked the same way. You know, if you had a service provider, they rented you a phone. And as soon as we broke that connection between the phone and the service provider, suddenly all kinds of folks poured in and innovation occurred in the phone industry. So the potential here is for cheaper, more effective services that are provided, and this is just one example of what we can do all across the economy. The idea is that whether we're talking about financial services, whether we're talking about products like the box on your cable TV, across the board, if we have more players who can potentially participate, fewer barriers to entry, the rules aren't rigged, then you get more people trying to get your business and you get better products at cheaper prices.
As you mentioned, this is a broader effort, and you've cited reduced competition across industries, including transportation.
Yeah.
This is a tough stance on business, and it follows an anti-inversion merger push last week. What's your message to corporate America?
You know, I think the general theme is that American business is, you know, the cornerstone of our economy. Our private sector thrives, and innovation is the hallmark of the United States. That's our big comparative advantage with other countries. But it starts to become less effective and reduces both what consumers get and the kind of innovation we generate if we get closed systems, or if people are gaming the system. And when it comes to inversions, essentially what was happening there was you had U.S. companies. Most of their business was here, most of their workforce was here, their headquarters were here, but they'd buy a small company somewhere else that had a really low tax rate, suggest somehow that they're now no longer a U.S. company, but they're an Irish company or a Dutch company, and that way they got out of paying U.S. taxes, even though they're benefiting from U.S. infrastructure, rule of law protections, et cetera. That's not fair. You and I can't do that, and we shouldn't allow corporations to do it either. With respect to these anti-competition concerns, as businesses get bigger, there's a natural tendency for them to want to get an exclusive market. What we want to do is to say, let's open things up. And if you are producing the best products and the best services, and you've invested a lot of capital, you're going to make a lot of money. If, on the other hand, you're just kind of sitting there living off the fact that the rules have set up where other people can't compete, that's not ultimately going to be good for you as a business, and it's not certainly going to be good for the U.S. economy.
One of the reasons behind reduced competition is more merger activity, as you talked about. Do you think that some of the approved mergers during your administration shouldn't have gone through?
You know, I don't weigh in on these things on a case-by-case basis. I think it's important for the experts who are charged with examining these issues, and the Justice Department and the Antitrust Division, which we've reinvigorated to make these assessments. I do think that Americans generally, across the political spectrum, on the left and on the right, get worried if companies get so big and control such a big market share that they can set prices and keep people out from competing with them in ways that damage the economy or consumers overall. Just to be clear, the executive order I'm issuing challenges agencies to look for ways to promote additional competition to help consumers But when it comes to antitrust enforcement, that's still the job of the Department of Justice, as well as the Federal Trade Commission, and they will continue to carry out their jobs independent of anything that we do here at the White House.